happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hi, Jarrett. How are you?
Good morning. I think we're really full in this screen, aren't we?
We are so full on the
Very
screen.
Close.
It's been a minute. Everybody in the chat, let me pull this mic forward. Sorry, everybody. It's been a minute. This is so fun. I haven't seen you in forever.
Well, I'm still here. Did a little traveling, and we did a true crime boss episode last week all by myself. So I was talking to myself last week.
It was really good. If you guys missed it, Jarrett put out an episode about Kohberger, and it was really interesting. I feel like we have so much to talk about today. But I mean, you were traveling. Did your kid have off from school or something like that? Or spring break or something already?
So we had some of that, yes. So
okay.
We've got a lot going on.
Oh goodness, Sal's got Jarrocrats. No, you know what? I can't do Jarrocrats today. I'm not in the mood to make Jarrett stand in the corner. I'm not in the mood to give any spankings today. I'm just kidding. But yeah, a lot going on. And I think we should probably start with Kohberger. But guys, before Jarrett and I went live, I was going over the Karen Reed doc, A Body in the Snow, with him. And I'm seeing all these things on Twitter and all these rumors that she walked off the set. And I'm very excited to talk to the director today to be like, what really happened here?
Well, the only thing I'll say about that is they've made claims about this unfettered access to Karen Reed. I mean, I've watched Karen Reed be interviewed, get ready for court. I've watched her get interviewed on the steps. So what does unfettered access to Karen Reed mean beyond that? I'm going to be watching. I have mixed emotions on this because I feel like this case is quite simply an instance of Karen Reed striking John and then taking off. And I think that's where my head's at. That's where it remains. I'm anxious to watch this special.
Yeah. And when they say this, unfettered access, it's kind of like they've got Karen and her legal team in the war room, and they've got, because look, I think Alan Jackson maybe did the 2020 or Dateline episode. He said a couple things, but he really does some commentary in this one, as does Elizabeth Little. But
if they're in the war room, I got to tell you, if they're in the war room, I have always thought, having been in that room many, many times on my own cases, I've always thought that would be so fascinating to film. But obviously you're discussing pretrial strategy, your approach to a case. So prior to trial, it's not something you would want to have come out. But
right.
I used to think if people saw what went on in here, good, bad, funny, emotionally, it would be fascinating television.
I feel personally, I just wouldn't talk. I wouldn't talk as a defendant until all was said and done. I mean, Lori Vallow Daybell, that was so cringe. That was awful to listen to. And I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, less is more, I guess. Did you see Forgetting Sarah Marshall, that movie? I say this all the time, when they're like, hey, can you do less? I tell my kids that. I'm like, can you do less of that? You're being very, do less of that. But anyway, let's start with Kohberger, because I have been dying to talk to you about everything that's going on between the 911 call, the DNA, the 3 types of DNA under the fingernails. I mean, there's so much here, Jarrett, and I'm nervous at this point. There seems to be a lot of holes in this case. And, without having gone to trial yet, obviously my mindset is that he's guilty. But what are you thinking right now?
So, well, first of all, I believe and continue to believe that Bryan Kohberger is responsible for these brutal killings. So I had said that as we approach trial, these pretrial filings, you're going to have information come out that puts meat on the bones of that affidavit. So an affidavit is written by the prosecution. It is as many favorable facts certainly in their arsenal as possible. They're required to disclose anything that's unfavorable too, arguably, which was the Franks motion earlier on in this case. But we knew as things moved forward, there was going to be more about the roommates. There was going to be more about forensic evidence that may have been found or not found at the scene. So I anticipated this. I've seen it happen in my own cases I've followed. So none of it is shocking in that here's where I remain. And I think people take issue with this. I remain in this camp. Bryan Kohberger's DNA was on the sheath that carried the weapon. He drove the car that was seen at the scene and in video. His phone was moving consistent with that killing. And in the days leading up and the moments after, he was acting bizarrely up until including a month later in Pennsylvania in the Poconos when he was wearing gloves, putting his garbage in the neighbor's garbage. Their alibi is nothing. It's a nothing burger. The DNA under the nails of a victim is significant, okay? But it is a mixture, which means you cannot definitively say whose DNA it is. It certainly does not mean it's the real killers, okay? Now, I'm no DNA expert. I've presented DNA evidence. I look at this. I've had cases where there was DNA on the body of a victim that was unidentified, okay? And it happens. There's probably DNA on my sweater, okay? It's just the way the world works. Now, I understand under the fingernails of a victim who was out all night, a victim who was drinking, seeing friends in a bar. So when I look at that, I don't think it exonerates Bryan Kohberger, whose touch DNA remains at that scene.
You're right. No, it doesn't. I was just thinking that, like, if I don't understand the defense, I guess, if they think this could exonerate him, why would they not want this to be considered during the trial, right? They don't want this DNA evidence to be considered. And I'm like, but it could potentially exonerate him. I don't want it to. I don't want to help them out. But I'm like, what? I guess there's always that shit, right? They don't actually know. But
well, mixture DNA is odd. I mean, and look, like, here's the thing. Here's what doesn't belong there. You have to look at what was introduced to that crime scene from the outside by a third party. A knife sheath, right? Okay. And his touch DNA. This rando guy from Washington's DNA ends up on the item that carried you're done. You're 9 out of 10 times you're done. And that's still true. It was true when he was charged, and it is true today. And that is the facts and the law that prosecution has to keep pounding. Now, his attorneys have done a great job. I'm not saying they aren't. They're fighting on every front. I talked about one of the things that's generated a lot of confusion is this autism claim that we talked about. And again, I don't know that we want to belabor that other than to say they're really pulling out the stops here for Kohberger. They're doing their jobs.
Do you think that matters, Jarrett? Like, I guess I'm kind of just like, what the hell does it matter? I don't care. I mean, it's like, you don't have the right to take, sorry, go ahead. I guess.
Okay. So, and that's true. They're not saying the autism should be considered in the guilt phase. They're saying that the autism, although I'm going to show you how they're going to backdoor that in. But so let me predict something that has not been predicted. But they're using that in the penalty phase. They're saying he has a mental health disorder, and under the Supreme Court. Okay, so that's where it falls. However, if you look at what came out last week, they cite these I would say tendencies that Kohberger has that our friend Jason and I and you, okay? Jason and I have been talking about these Kohberger tendencies for a long time. He's strange. He charm bombs people. He has these, they're not tics, but they're socially awkward tendencies, okay? They are consistent with an autism diagnosis. They're going to use that in the event this bagging garbage comes up. They're going to say, oh, that's just a quirk he has because he's autistic. You watch. That's what they're going to say. And how do you explain that away? This strange behavior. He cleans obsessively. He puts garbage away from himself. A month later, he's still obsessively cleaning the car, by the way. Whatever. That, to me, that's BS. But like you said, I think it's very acceptable for the penalty phase if they are determining whether he lives or dies. Definitely, this should come into play. Of course it should. I mean, I'm with you.
I just take a lot of issue here, and I'm very nervous. And you know what's not helping me is the odd 911 call and the text messages and you know, we could go back and forth on this forever, right? Well, this situation could happen if you're drinking and you're in bed and you don't want to get up, and like we could go on forever, right? I mean, it's the whole thing at this point is I thought about this too, and tell me if I'm crazy, but between this robbery that's 10 miles away, we're hearing more about this ski mask. Could there be two killers? Could he have worked with somebody? There's more than you know what I mean? One person's DNA.
Well, again, there was only one killer seen inside. The behavior of Dylan and everybody that night is consistent with kids that were out partying, drinking. You know, did anybody think our friends got hacked to death upstairs in that moment? I don't know. I mean, you can't glean that from the text. You know, something's going on. There was a weirdo in the hallway, and then she goes down and goes to bed with Brittany. So I don't know. That is a tough explanation. She has got to be prepared extensively for her direct and cross testimony. You know, and the answer may be life is stranger than fiction sometimes. She may just say, look, I was partying. I never thought my friends were murdered. There are people in and out of the house all the time. This is the weirdo I saw walking down the hallway. It's consistent with, oh, by the way, the DNA, the forensics team found DNA in the house that matches this weirdo. So
yeah, right.
So
I mean,
when you have a weakness like that, you got to tie it all together. When you say, here, we see this guy matching this description. Whoops, he just happens to match the DNA and the physical description of the person with that DNA on the weapon, on the knife sheet. So you got to build credibility of Dylan in this case. You have to pound on that fact that ultimately someone matching that description's DNA was located at the scene. Someone matching that description drives this vehicle. No one was ever seen with Kohberger, even at the coffee place in the morning after. Everything is consistent with him being a lone wolf here.
Do you think there's any possible way that this is all, I mean, you know, a criminology experiment to this guy? If, let's say, he did it. I mean, it's just something that I think about, I guess, when you've got a guy here that has no criminal record and that we know of, right, that we are aware of, or has committed no crimes in the past that he's been caught, you know, committing, and then he goes to this. It's kind of like, you know,
I mean,
what is
that's
the motive?
possible.
Yeah, like
That's possible, but I think more if you look at the posts that he's made in his life and the strange social relationships, his drug addiction. I really think Bryan Kohberger's study of criminology was an effort to understand his own desires to commit these crimes and his lack of empathy for people and the things that he's actually posted about. So in my opinion, I don't know the guy, but I'm saying more likely than not, he was trying to understand, why am I compelled to feel this way? Why? He described himself as a piece of meat. Like he just has no emotion. Like that to me is somebody who's trying to understand the apathy that they have.
Jarrett, you need to do a deep dive for us from beginning to end. You've got a great series on all of this, but I want you to put it all in one 30-minute sit down or something so we can hear just like the inception of, you know, when he was arrested and why he was arrested and up until now.
So I will do that, but we just worked on a project that'll be out this summer that does that.
Yeah.
So it will be out. It'll be out on one of the streamers, and this group did a great job with a lot of the first party people, and I had the chance to evaluate and assess the case thus far. So it's not 30 minutes. I think it's like a 2-hour deal.
Okay, so I said 30 minutes because I was just thinking about you having to sit in front of a camera and talk for 30, which, listen, I know you can do it, obviously. I know you can do it, but you know me, I'm never ready to learn. I'm never ready to really pay attention to anything long-winded. So I prefer 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I mean, you guys know me. Every time I play a press conference or something, I'm like, let's play it on 1.5 speed here because, you know, nobody has time. So I'm looking for this. I'm looking for a rundown here.
I always feel like I'm throwing cold water on what's being kind of talked about online with Kohberger, and only because, I'm guided by facts. I'm guided by what's expected in the defenses. Every time the defense files something, I don't think it's as I understand how these things go. And it's not to me saying like nothing will knock me off my position that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. I'm not saying that. I just haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, I see. Listen, I told you, I think he's guilty, but I see holes. And it makes me very nervous for these families who have been through so freaking much and who are just ready to put this behind them, if that's even possible. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I think I read the other day, and maybe someone in the chat knows, but that Goncalves family was getting harassed or something. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, my big gripe there, Lauren, is there appears to be, and I've said this before, and I apologize if I'm being repetitive, there appears to be a disconnect between the Goncalves family and I would assume the rest of the families and the prosecution. And that's unfortunate. When that happens, you have to reel families back in, assure them you're working hard, have multiple meetings along the way to give people updates. At least that's what we aimed to do. And when I say we, the teams that I've been a part of, because first of all, they're the folks that have the most vested interest in the case.
Yeah.
The second part is you don't want to lose them in the public. These are the folks you're fighting for. And I don't understand what is going on there. And Bill Thompson, again, his office is doing their job. I think he's doing a great job, but it's like, why is the family out there doing their own thing? And, like with Drexel, we had that disconnect in the Brittany Drexel case for years. And then I represented Dawn. When we came in, I encouraged Dawn at least to give the new team a chance to stop this divide. Not that she was occasioning it, but to give them that chance. And I'm going to tell you something, that changed the tone and the attitude in her mind, in my mind, rowing together with the prosecution on the victim front. I mean, and I wasn't the prosecutor in that case. I was simply an advocate for Dawn. And when they got on the same page, it changed things and helped motivate these investigators too.
Yeah, it really is such a shame. It's so sad. And it is sad that we've gotten to a point where, I think about this and you think about Libby German's family getting harassed during the Delphi trial and this, and, it's got, and I don't want to draw attention to it, but the Paul O'Keefe catfishing that I'm like, what is going on? Like, leave these families alone. My goodness. But anyway, do you have anything else to say on this front or anyone else in the chat before we move on to our next story? Anyone?
It's ever evolving. I just think, we'll continue to comment as there's going to be more. That's the only thing I'll say. There's more pretrial motions coming. The one thing I will say is I'm surprised so much has continued to remain under lock and key. This judge seems a little bit less inclined than Judge was to keep everything under lock and key. And I think more is going to come out. I know more is going to come out. And as it does, we can certainly discuss it.
And we've talked about this. I know that the venue change was probably smart, but losing that judge, not that smart. Like that, I mean, think about
this guy is no nonsense. John Judge labored over every year. I mean, you just saw him think out loud. Great judge. And our new judge is extremely quick and to the point.
Yep, totally. Let me pull this up, what I want to get to. I want to get to Nikki McCain at the press conference yesterday. And I also can read to you an analysis from our friend Jack Fox on the husband's little speech here. I will remind everybody I'm not accusing anybody of anything. However, Nikki Saelee McCain has been missing since May of 2024. And in June of 2024, she was actually set to testify against her husband on a domestic violence charge arrest. And coincidentally, she went missing a month before she could testify. And so the DA had no choice but to drop the charges. And this is Shasta County, California, the Redding, California area. This is the same area that Sherry Papini magically disappeared from. Let me
And
Pull
we have
this
an
up.
archive of, and just so
Yes.
folks that are new to the channel, we have an archive of shows we've done with Chloe and Kay. Nikki's
yeah.
sisters have been on. Brian Fitzgibbons, an investigator that's been involved, was on multiple. I think Brian holds the record for most guest appearances on the show, because we covered this extensively since May of last year. So if
Yes.
anybody's interested in some additional background on this case and why this press conference is so significant, watch some of those back episodes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because we have said from the beginning that Nikki's case is not getting nearly enough attention. I'm just changing the banner, guys. Sorry. And, we also had, I love talking to him. The nobody homicide guy is what he calls himself, Tad DiBiase. He's great. We had him on. And Jarrett, Bryan actually texted me and by accident his friend Jarrett yesterday, and I was like, I don't know this number, but I'm pretty sure you're trying to text Jarrett, because he's like, did you guys see this? And I was like, yeah.
Well, tell him we saw it.
Yeah, no, and so I want you guys to see Nikki's husband, his speech pattern, what he says. I might just put it on 1.25.
I mean, he's been under a shroud of suspicion, like Lauren said, because of those
Yeah.
pending assault charges. And this is the first time he's spoken out.
Well, Jarrett, and what else? The fact that there was fires on his property. I mean, like, days, weeks after she was missing. It's all been incredibly suspect. He hasn't shown any type of urgency, and it's concerning because to me, and I said this, I can say I'm not accusing anyone. You're a lawyer. Am I accusing somebody? But it gives me Scott Peterson vibes, the way he speaks, the way there's no urgency. But I'll let you guys decide. And then I'll read you what Jack said.
You can't ask me for advice after you said it.
Fine.
Good morning. My name is Chris Edwards, the investigations captain at the sheriff's office. And we're here this morning regarding the Nikki Saelee McCain case.
And you can't hear this guy, the sheriff.
Yeah, sorry, this guy is rough.
Regarding her investigation. At this point,
When they pick up that other mic, you can hear them.
Yeah.
Questions after regarding this case, and we relate the same, so we respect that. So at this point, the sheriff's office is continuing to investigate this. We have since last May. We're here a year. At this point, we're about 10 months.
But there's Tyler standing with Kay and Chloe.
Yeah, her sisters are so beautiful, and so is Nikki. So beautiful.
Well, I'm John McCain. I'm the husband of Nikki.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. I need to slow this down.
I would like to thank God.
Sorry. My bad. I'll start again. I guess we can't go as fast as I'd like. It's only
Just
my
slow
brain
down
that
for
works.
Tyler's part.
Yeah, only my brain works like this. Sorry. Let me just rewind just a little bit. Okay.
Nikki McCain.
This is not.
John McCain. I'm the husband of Nikki McCain. First of all, I would like to thank the sheriff's office, FBI, for getting involved. Any efforts that might help bring my wife home, safely. We miss you. I don't really know what to say. I haven't been in the public eyes, and I haven't done very well with it. I apologize to everyone, especially my children, my wife's family, mine as well. I'm just here in support, so anything that I can do, I want to do that. Okay, I'll take over.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Wait, we got to stop this. Okay. What? Literally.
So that was extremely
What?
significant. I mean, that's the first time Tyler standing with, remember in the search efforts, he wasn't participating, and now he's standing with Kay and Chloe and everybody. Let me say this, and I've watched that. I watched it yesterday. I watched it again just now. And one of the things he says is, we miss you. He doesn't say, I miss you.
Jack pointed
which,
that out.
which is, to me, a little bit, it sidesteps some things. I think it's a little bit odd to say it that way. Also, but he looks well. I mean, he's not shaking. He's holding a microphone. Anytime somebody holds a microphone, someone who particularly is scared or nervous to talk in public, they shake.
Yeah.
He's not shaking. So
Wait,
he's got
hold
like his dead level best. Like he's pretty calm. looking at that. Watch his hand. He's not shaking.
Okay. I mean, listen, I could argue that he maybe has a little THC in his system. Just kidding. I don't actually know, but if I had to guess, he seems like a pretty even-keeled guy as it is, right?
Yeah, and
like,
I mean, he looks, he does not look, I mean, when I say, look, he looks healthy. He doesn't look rattled. He doesn't look nervous, but I'm also listening to what he's saying.
Yeah.
No one looks comfortable up there. Is it because all the cameras are watching them? I don't know. I mean, we've talked to Kay and Chloe. We know their concerns. We know how they feel, but at the same time, there's children involved here. You know, and I think they often hedge their bets so as not to throw the kids into the middle or catch Tyler's ire and that kind of thing. So they're balancing that as well. There's just a lot going on here.
Yeah, I just want to go back and see if I notice anything about him really quick, like you said, just his demeanor.
Okay.
Hold on. I mean, he definitely looks uncomfortable, Jarrett.
Support, so.
Oh, yeah, but he's not shaking. Like, that's probably one of the biggest
I
tells.
want to do that.
Yeah, but listen, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. He knows what's going on, maybe, and could he have taken a benzo or what are those blood? I mean, what do you call those? Sure, a benzo, but when you need to calm down and it's not
like a Xanax.
No, it's not a controlled substance. My babysitter used to take it she's an actress for auditions to bring her. You know what I'm talking about.
Babysitter used to take like Zanny the nanny.
No. You're thinking, okay, no, it's not Xanax. I'm saying it's not. It's not a controlled substance. Why am I blanking on this? It literally makes you, and it's not like a ashwagandha either. But anyway, you know, there's things you can take to make yourself relax.
Right.
Obviously, they're not are not controlled. So
He's pretty chill. I would agree. Yeah, he's pretty chill. He's very chill.
Okay, so then let me switch and show you guys Jack Fox's analysis on Twitter.
Jack is much more qualified to analyze than I am.
Well, no, I think all of us are like, oh my goodness, like this was totally spot on. And it says, you guys can read it. First thing he does, his priority is thanking law enforcement. Fair enough. But thanks for being involved, not helping find her, suggests his focus is on their involvement and not their actual work. Any efforts that might help bring my wife home safely. First, what does that mean? Then look at how he rates the success. Any efforts, quote, might help, quote, bring my wife home, suggests he doesn't think she'll come back of her own agency. We miss you, but Jarrett, as you said, that might be true, but it's noted he doesn't talk personally for himself and say, I miss you. I don't really know what to say. Could be extreme stage fright, but a man whose wife has been missing for so long would be expected to have some feelings or thoughts to articulate. Quote, I haven't been in the public eye and I haven't done well with it.
I think he meant he has been or has been. Oh, he hasn't been because he hasn't made a statement. Right. But he has been in the public eye.
And this question, is it true Jeanette walked out? That's his mom. I did hear that as well, but I heard that was because she didn't like a reporter that was there because, you know, it's not about finding Nikki or anything. It's obviously about who you like and who you don't like. Didn't you guys know that? But anyway, yeah, I think he says, and I was being sarcastic.
Right.
Yeah, I think he made a mistake here, Jack. It says, I haven't been in the public eye and I haven't done well with it. I think might be an acknowledgement that he's not doing a good job with his moment in the spotlight. It also shows for some reason that he is aware that he hasn't sought attention, which is true. The I apologize line, apologize for what? He doesn't say. Is this an embedded confession? I could understand if he's apologizing to families for screwing up its appearance, but the first apology he makes is to everyone. You only apologize to everyone for big mistakes. The whole list of people he apologizes to makes it feel like it's an apology for something big. Everyone, children, wife's family, my family, noted, it's my children, not our children. Quote, I'm just here in support, so anything I can do, I want to do that, could be seen as a lie. He could give a proper speech and asking for information or appeal to his wife or potential kidnappers, etc. He didn't, so he's not doing anything I can do. However, he says, I want to do that. That implies he isn't doing anything he can, only he has a want to do it. Sorry if that was a lot, but yeah, let me go back to these chats. Oh boy, Sinead was his girlfriend there. I did hear he had a girlfriend too. I don't know. I don't want to spread rumors because I'm not actually sure, but let's see.
Well, the other thing he didn't say was, look, there's been a lot of speculation that I was involved. I have nothing to do with this. I want to find my wife. I mean, he didn't say that. You know,
right.
He did not say that. And how could you ignore the elephant in the room that, you know, you've fallen under the shadow of suspicion. Your whole life is being analyzed, and you don't say, look, I have nothing to do with this. All I want to do is help.
Yep.
You know,
Right,
I just,
Jarrett.
you should have,
Right.
what I would have advised, if I was representing Tyler, I would have had him read a prepared statement and then look up and say something that would appear unprepared. Just so Jack Foxes of the world aren't like he took that apart. I mean, look at all that. There's a lot of tells there.
And he was being nice. Okay. Jack was being incredibly ethical. He was being incredibly careful. I know for a fact, because we talked offline, Jack was like very alarmed by this. But again, when you're putting this out there and no one's been charged, like, oh, wait, here he is. Perfect. There we go. It's one of the weakest missing person appeals I've come across. There you go. I mean,
well, Jack, it has been a year since she's missing. He's used to the right. I mean, it's like, I agree. I think he's totally right. And his analysis was fantastic. Spot on.
Yeah, spot on. And like I said, I think Jack is being super ethical here. And he's probably not saying exactly what he wants to say and what I want to say also. But it's just like, you know, until this person is found, no one is not a suspect, right? Everybody is a suspect. However, it's not like they've named Tyler as an official suspect. They haven't named anybody as an official suspect. So it is just funny that he does seem to have this very, very guilty conscience. And if you have it, why not address it, Jarrett? Like you said.
You cannot, here's what we do know. He was arrested, charged, and facing very serious charges of assaulting Nikki over a prolonged period of time. I mean, over a course of hours. Now, he did not go to trial on that because those charges were dismissed. So you have that in the background. You didn't have that with Scott Peterson. You didn't have that in some of the other cases we're all familiar with where he had this motive. And that's not an accusation. That's a fact. Like, she was the star witness in very serious felony charges against you. That's a fact. Okay. Now, does that mean you did it? No, but it's not great. It's not a great fact.
No. And it's interesting because I just put out this episode about this homicide in New York City in the early 2000s. Her name was Sandra Bonaventure. She's pregnant. And listen, there was no DNA. There was no, there's nothing found on her body. However, the circumstantial evidence they had was that the baby's father did not want this baby. They had documented threats, and, last person seen with her, last calls, and he gets convicted of murder. To me, like that is what we have here. It essentially is what we have here. We have it documented that he allegedly beat her. And again, you've said this, she's such a tiny girl. How could you,
she's 5 foot.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm very disturbed by this. And just speaking of Scott Peterson, he did get his ass kicked yesterday, which is a very great day, but not severe enough to go to the hospital. Yeah. I mean, and I think the biggest takeaway for a lot of people, do you guys hear the construction outside my house, by the way?
No,
you don't hear that? Okay, great. It's very distracting and annoying. But I think the biggest takeaway was this. Perfect, Pokemon. I didn't realize prison had pickleball. I'm kind of like, shouldn't you be picking up rocks, bro? Like, shouldn't you be out there like separating rocks and I don't know, like doing stuff that maybe somebody that murdered his wife and unborn baby should do, not playing pickleball? I don't know. Maybe not.
Well,
okay.
He was playing basketball for years too. I remember that. I knew that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this whole thing with Nikki gives me Scott Peterson vibes. And if anyone has any information about Nikki, about her whereabouts, anything, please contact the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, or you can contact Brian Fitzgibbon's agency, USPA. I can throw that in the episode notes as well. Oh, and thank you so much. I was laughing really hard yesterday. I saw that headline that he got his ass kicked, and I was like, yeah. I was having a great time. So All right. Pulling up these. Yes, I know. Boo-hoo. Exactly. All right, Jarrett, let's I think we should go through and discuss quickly the civil suit that Veronica Butler's mother has brought forth against the 5 defendants accused of killing Veronica and Jillian Kelly. And also, she sued the hospital and the quote therapist, and I put therapist in quotes because turns out she didn't necessarily have the proper qualifications to treat the children, among other things. But while I'm pulling this up, do you want to kind of go through this a little bit? Because I got to say,
so this was extremely telling of what was going on in the time frame leading up to the entire custody battle between Veronica Wrangler and Grandma Tiffany, who was hanging over this thing, and the power she wielded. We talked about in the past, she threatened a judge in the middle of the hearing. She was on the board of this hospital, and the claim is that she manipulated her position on the board and used the wife of the CEO and superintendent of the hospital, who is a therapist, to provide therapy to the minor children of Veronica and Wrangler. And the allegation is that this Gleason doctored the reports to show or suggest that the children were sexually abused by Veronica's brother. Here's the other thing I didn't realize. Veronica's brother, also a minor.
Yep.
So we're talking about kids here all the way around. And the claim is against the hospital as the supervisor of the superintendent's or CEO's wife. The fact that she was not so qualified to do this, the fact that she had a conflict of interest treating Tiffany's grandchildren when Tiffany, as a member of the board, is essentially a boss of hers. The fact that she was not didn't have proper licensure to conduct these types of evaluations. And all of this was used. One of the big questions I got after the special we did on Crime Nation on this case and some of our other stories was, how did Veronica lose custody of her kids? And, well, according to this lawsuit, it was based on doctored therapeutic records. That's what the claim is. Now, these are only allegations. And you may ask, why would somebody bring a civil lawsuit against Tiffany Adams? She's facing life in prison. Veronica is dead. Why would we do this? Because the attorneys that have brought this case, Attorney Dollar, I believe, these folks can now control their own investigation a little bit. They can conduct depositions. And here's the other thing. The hospital's on the line for essentially malpractice through their negligence in allowing this to happen. There's a lot of money involved here, too. This young man has been defamed, has sustained damages as a result of this. Veronica lost custody of her kids. It's her estate bringing this claim. So there's a lot of money on the line here. The hospital's insured, and that's who's going to be dealing with this lawsuit.
I was so happy to see that her mom did this. I was so happy to see that she brought forth the lawsuit against the 5 defendants and as well as Gleason in the hospital. And, from what I read there too, it's like Tiffany Adams did not actually have legal custody of these kids. And you need a signature from, their legal guardians when you're getting them treatment from a medical professional. And that wasn't done until about 5 or 6 visits in by one parent, not even Veronica.
Well, and here was the other thing. There was a guardian ad litem. You'll see that term used. That is a person appointed by the court to represent the children and their interests exclusively. That's when you have a custody battle going on. You got dad here, mom here, Tiffany up here. That guardian takes the emotion out of this and represents the kids. The big claim is that guardian didn't sign off either on this treatment. Exactly. And these are like, if you look at, and again, that's an allegation, but if you look at the law as it relates to treatment of particularly minors this young, there's boxes that need to be checked. They weren't checked.
Yeah, right. And, I said this, I'm very careful with the way I phrase this, Jarrett. I try to be, but I said this. I said something is not right when I was looking into this because the hospital therapist that made this decision and said, emergency custody should be granted to Tiffany Adams, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, she works at the hospital that Tiffany's on the board of. And also, I noticed that Tiffany's last meeting at the hospital that she was on the board was like September of 2024 or something like that, or 2023, I can't recall. And that was also the last month that Tiffany Gleason worked there. So listen, I'm going to speculate that something internally went down during that time period because they both left. And
well, the only thing I would say is, you know, let's assume for a moment Tiffany Gleason is not a bad actor, and she was told that this was going on and believed what she was doing was trying to make these kids find their way into a safer environment. If that's the case, you know, that's something that may come out, but it's not going to exonerate her. If she's not qualified to make those, it's not a defense to what happened. Like, like I said, either she's complicit with Tiffany Adams and knowing full well this is, you know, these are manufactured, or she believes this is going on and taking these steps in an effort to protect the kids. Either way, that's not a defense to what happened here.
Yeah, right. And this is a great point, Afton. She should understand the scope of her practice. I mean, we'll see what happens. As you said, these are allegations. Me personally, I believe them. I have always been under the belief that this was going on based on my research. And I just, like I said, I really hope that I think that we've got hearings in April and in May for the 5 defendants. I'm hoping that with those hearings, we're one step closer to figuring out if there's going to be a trial or if there's going to be some kind of.
We will be. Remember this, a grandmother who's capable of manipulating 4 other individuals to hack 2 women up is capable of manipulating a therapist who she supervises to do her bidding. In my mind.
Right. No, you're right. You make a really great point. I just, you know, it's coming up on a year. Oh my gosh. They disappeared March 30th of last year. So these families have not even gone a full year without these beautiful souls. And it's so sad. I can't believe I didn't even realize that it's almost been a year. Gosh, it was.
Things are moving quickly. They're moving quicker than I thought. Remember, we were originally saying, we said at some point, you know, 2025 if we're lucky. So May is, you're going to have some resolution here by the end of the year, I would think.
Okay, that's interesting because you would always say 2026, and I was like, no, that's too far away.
Well, that would assume if there was a trial. It looks like everybody's going to plead out.
I feel like they really do want to give Tiffany and Tad a trial, though. I really do feel that way, and you know, because I think for the families, because this has just been so horrific. Do you kind of feel that way? Like maybe the other 3, they're like, okay, Paul, you pled out, we get it. No.
Why risk it? Why, if they're willing to plead, to me, you're just playing with fire. Why? I mean, if they're willing to plead and it's essentially a life sentence, if I'd go to the family and say, you want to gamble, go to like Mohegan Sun or Bally's, you know, why are we doing this? Like, you know, and again, here's the other thing. What was going to come up in that trial? Gruesome pictures, you know, gruesome details of what happened. And then when they take whatever defense they're going to take, they're going to further make these claims about Veronica's brother, things of that nature. Those are the unpleasant aspects of a trial that no one really thinks about. Like you'd say, look, we could avoid all that and get the result we all want here, which is Tiffany never to be out, Tad never to be out. So the juice ain't worth the squeeze, if you ask me.
Jarrett, you're a smart man. That's a good point.
I am a smart man.
You don't let it go to your head, okay? But no, it's you're right. I don't think anyone wants to relive that. But again, it's kind of like bringing Tiffany Gleason on the stand. You would hope that maybe she would be honest. She would be. I don't know. This is
that
tough.
Now the civil case that's the hospital should probably get their checkbook out. That's going to be a problem.
That hospital has no money. I was looking into their records. I mean, that hospital is going to close if it's literally.
Well, the check doesn't necessarily. Here's the thing: the check doesn't necessarily get cut from the hospital. It gets cut from their insurance carrier. So,
sorry, I'm sorry, Simi. I had to post this. Jarrett is smart and hot. Sorry. Now you can continue with what you're saying. Sorry.
So the hospital is insured for big bucks. I mean, so here's the other thing, though. They're protected against criminal conduct. So if Gleason ends up being charged criminally here, I don't know. That may create an issue for the civil claim, because one thing you'll see in that allegation is that she was operating within the scope of her employment. It's not within the scope of her employment to commit crimes. So if they do that, that could potentially harm the claim. But in the end, I think the hospital's not going to want to, they're going to want to write a check here to resolve that.
Do you see this question? Wouldn't this give TA the right to bring out the SA reports in the trial? I mean, but like allegedly they are fabricated, and I believe they are fabricated. So, I guess it's kind of like.
So is it do we mean the trial, the underlying criminal trial?
I think that's what, Deb, that's what you meant.
I think that she may have the right to do that with or without the civil claim. I mean, the fact that the civil claim has come out, that's in another world. It's in civil court. It really wouldn't add any further justification. But the facts certainly would suggest, like Tiffany could say, look, I believed this in my heart. This was happening. Here's a report that supports it. And then the prosecution is going to have to pick that apart.
I mean, we knew that's what her defense was this whole time. I mean, I heard it at the pretrial, and it made me sick to my stomach. It made me want to roll my eyes. And I'm just like, yeah. And like I said, I have gone pretty deep with a lot of sources there, and I can't disclose everything, but I have my reasons to be fully on board with the fact that these kids were never SA'd. Okay. I have my reasons, and I have my own proof. And one day I hope that it can come out when this is all done. So yeah. And sorry, I don't have any mods. I don't have any moderators. We don't do any of that stuff because we're, still very small, but I can definitely drop you a link for membership. I don't understand how to do it, and I don't understand where it comes from. I don't
even know what it is.
I know. I do a lot of, like for my members, I do a lot of early access videos and stuff before I release them. And then, every once in a while I'll do like a member live, but I should do that. It's been a while.
I don't have enough subs for that kind of thing. It's clearly I don't have enough to have a moderator or understand what I'm doing. But while we have time now, I think we should talk about, I think we should talk about the Menendez brothers, Jarrett. I know that we weren't planning on it, but I really want to get your take. I'm upset right now, but what do you think? So we anticipated an attitude shift when Gascon got bounced from the DA's office. Yeah. So the new district attorney has filed. So there's this resentencing hearing pending, which we did an episode on. Essentially, a judge is going to look at the Menendez brothers' claim that they were the victims of sexual abuse of their father. Mm-hmm. Now, that was occasioned by the district attorney's office. They asked for that resentencing. Now, the new district attorney is coming in saying, we asked for it, we're going to go in, and we're also going to say you guys are liars and none of this is true, and we're opposed to you being resentenced. That's what's happening. That's a whole different approach than Gascon was taking. So what does it mean? Does that mean basically that this current DA is going to carry the day before that court and put all these, what he's saying were 20 plus lies told by the Menendez brothers, and these are convenient truths now, and they're plotting and planning, flies in the face of victims of sexual abuse, other than those that were truly motivated by money, things of that nature. So in the end, a judge is going to be able to consider both sides, because the defense, in response to what the DA is saying, is going to put the Menudo claim in and the letter. So a judge ultimately makes that decision. The sad thing is things changed midstream here for the Menendez brothers. They had a DA that was asking for resentencing. Now, think about that. That's a 180-degree turn on exactly where we were. So they have to be extremely disappointed. Gavin Newsom, I think, ultimately can do something unilaterally. I mean, I'm no expert on this, and I think he may.
I do too, Jarrett. I actually was just thinking that. I think that Gavin Newsom is going to swoop in here and do something about this. I do. I think he needs the win right now. He finally, made this statement that putting trans women in women's sports wasn't necessarily fair. And I'm kind of like, oh, now you want to say, you know what I mean? And he got a lot of crap.
And he's reeling from the fires. He's reeling from his response to the fires. So he may do that. He may not. He may, he may say, look, this is too controversial right now. The thing is this is one of those things you just don't know how to feel. There's certainly a lot to suggest that that's what was going on with Eric and Lyle Menendez. But at the same time, the DA said something at the end of their position, which is basically any young men and women that are victims of sexual abuse need to come forward. You can't take the law into your own hands. And, we're not going to promote that kind of thing. And I think it relates back to Tiffany Adams too. So I look at it this way. They've done a lot of time in jail, and the good things they've done while in jail should not be ignored and should absolutely be considered. Also consider the fact that they were very young when this happened. Also consider the fact that it is a possibility there was sexual assault going on, and consider resentencing these guys.
Yeah. And I saw that he was, he's looking back at the original case files fine, and he sees that they lied, and he sees that they blamed the mafia and all the money they were spending. And if you look back at the case originally and their behavior after, it looks like they're two spoiled rich kids that committed this. But it's like, I thought we were beyond that, I guess, but we're not, we're not. And that's why this has gotten so tough. But again, it's like, if they are up for parole, I think who wouldn't grant them parole based on their behavior, what they've done, the fact that they're incredibly remorseful. I mean, right? It's like,
those are all big considerations. The other thing was none of this got in. The sexual abuse didn't get in trial in the trials the way they should have. So that's an attack on the process and the merits of this thing. So there's a lot out there. It's look, the next year or so on this case is going to be very active. I know that's patently obvious, but there are three fronts here. There's the court front, the resentencing front, and the Gavin Newsom front. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. It's like at one point I feel so stupid. I kept thinking, wow, could they be out by Christmas? And it's like, what was I thinking?
Looked that way. It looked that way until the election and Gascon came in. And Gascon was supported by members of the Menendez family, as far as what I've read, was supported by, I think it's the lone members of the Menendez family that are opposed to them being released. I think their
Uncle Milton died. No, he just died.
Actually. I didn't know that.
Smiling. I don't mean to smile, but it's just my face.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Because he literally just died, I think 1 or 2 days ago. And so I was like, oh my goodness. But there is a lot wrong also with some internal stuff within the DA's office. I know that Hochman kicked off the original team that was looking into the case, and he demoted them. And they actually are suing him for some kind of workplace.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And that often happens when a new DA comes in. They have, at least in Pennsylvania, they have pretty powerful authority to make the changes they want to make in their office. Personally, when I was working, we have an elected DA, and I've worked for 4 different elected DAs. And every time they came in, most of them were pretty cohesive with the teams we had, but there were individuals that kind of exited stage left that were supportive of the prior administration. And then some DAs would shake up the office a little bit. But ultimately, in my experience, competence was the controller. Like if you were a competent assistant DA in your lane, whatever it was you were doing, and you wanted to remain, you were allowed to remain so long as you got on board and were supportive of the new administration. Not politically, but internally.
Yes, definitely. And also there is somebody that is very close to the case, the Menendez brothers case, that works in that office that actually formerly was the attorney for Uncle Milton. And so Hochman has said, no, I realize that this is a point of contention, so she won't be involved in the case. So there's just like a bunch of little things that I was like, oh, this is just, it's just tough. I just, you guys know how I stand. I just think they should be released based on everything we've discussed. But you're right. We can't take the law into our own hands. And I don't know if you saw this, but some 15-year-old just killed his mother, claiming it was because he watched the Menendez brothers documentary on Netflix, but like literally watched it and then immediately killed his mother. So it's like, and he told police that, I guess. So that makes headlines. It looks horrible. But it's just, yeah, it's kind of a mess, and it's just so convoluted.
And again, there's just no way to know for sure. You know, you have to look at the evidence and make the best estimate. But here's what we do know. They did 30 years. They did 30 years already. 36, they're contrite. 36. They don't deny doing this. They deny the reason why they did it. And like, I know that's a big deal, but you're admitting to killing your parents here and planning it and lying about it.
Yeah,
you know,
totally. Yeah. And when I interviewed a juror from Eric's first trial, my whole thing, I was like, so why didn't you guys go for murder 2? Because that was an option. You know, you couldn't agree on murder 1. You couldn't agree on manslaughter. Why not murder 2? And she was adamant that the women did not feel like it was murder 2. They felt so strongly that it was manslaughter that they couldn't even agree on that. And that was wild. And it's kind of like, man, if you only would have known where we'd be at this point in time, you probably would have agreed on murder 2, knowing that they'd have a chance at freedom one day. So I thought that was, really interesting. But yeah, go and check that out, you guys, if you're interested. I have a Menendez brothers playlist, and her name is Hazel Thornton, the juror. But thank you so much, Sheila. And see, this is interesting. Sue, I think they need to stay in jail. I have zero sympathy for them, and that's fine. A lot of people feel that way. I don't. I do have sympathy for what they went through as kids, because I believe them, but I totally understand and respect that. We have a few minutes left. What should we talk about? What did you have for breakfast?
Not much. And I've been up since like 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but not much other than, I don't know if anybody got the chance. I got to do New York Homicide this week. I don't know if you saw that. I was the mafia expert.
I didn't see it. I didn't get to see it.
So we did an episode on the Sylvester Zatola murder in the Bronx. And if anybody gets a chance, it's called Murder at the Drive-Thru, and it's on Oxygen. That case was fantastic. So it looked one way, and well, I don't want to ruin it. Was it a mafia hit? I mean, that's basically it. And the Zatola case, first of all, I was thrilled to be a mob expert in New York. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And that was one of the trips we did we didn't do a live show. We did an in-person interview when I came out that time. Jason and I came out. But that was the episodes we were filming was for that show. But it was a very good show. Like, I watched it. I didn't know everything. And I watched it like legit as a viewer on Friday when it came out, or Saturday when it came out. It's a really cool story.
Why don't you tell me? So where do I watch it? It's
on Oxygen. It should be on demand on Oxygen. It's called New York Homicide. It's in their 3rd season. And I think they do a really good job. They told a so this man, they attempted to kill this man who was like an elderly father of this large family. They attempted to kill him 3 different times and missed. And like the level of commitment of the people responsible here is shocking.
3 different times? That's insane.
3 different times.
Oh my God.
And then his son was, you have to see it. It's a very, very interesting story that may or may not have involved the mafia.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm excited because I did see New York Homicide season 1. I do remember that. I really liked it. What Afton says, was his name Rasputin?
Oh, because he couldn't be killed. Is that why?
I don't. And Jason is our friend. He produces some of the episodes sometimes, like the in-person and stuff. I know. Jarrett, you're talking about Jason like everybody knows Jay, and no one knows Jay. But
Jay's
anyway,
one of my best buddies since first grade. That's who Jay
yeah.
is. And he's a
really,
tech guy.
he's really fun, and he's awesome, and he loves this stuff as well. But all right. Well, this was really nice. So I think for next week, maybe we should do a pre-record or something. I'm going to be in Florida with the fam. Spring break, whatever. So maybe we can do a pre-record and roll it out and be in the chat or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Whatever happens over the next week, we'll be looking to cover it.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
if you're on vacation and we could do a solo one, I'll do that. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. So everybody go back and look at Jarrett's solo episode about Bryan Kohberger and the autism. It's really interesting. And
Bring Jason to the front.
We love doing it too. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them